المرسلين الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته and welcome to our Fiqh Hour, special Fiqh Hour, third such special Fiqh Hour, which is about Hajj, and we are on episode 3 as I mentioned. In the last 2 episodes which started last week, we have gone through the kind of general overview of the practice of Hajj. This week we're going to go into more detail. In fact, we're going to the actual practice of how to perform Hajj. So the first thing one would do is that it is recommended, yani it is mustahab, that according to some it is sunnah, to cut the nails, trim the mustache, obviously if you're a chap, and shave or remove any najasat hair, and then one should perform wudu or ghusl. Now again, practically speaking, sometimes this can be difficult because of the fact some people tend to go into ihram whilst on the plane. Some people try to go into ihram, say, at Manchester Airport. So it can be a little bit challenging. At the airport, it's not too difficult. I don't know why you say Manchester Airport, because that's not the only airport in the world. People can travel from elsewhere, but it's the airport that is closest, that travels out of the country to where we are. So therefore, you would choose that particular place which would be easy to do these particular acts. So if it means that at the airport it's going to be quite challenging for you, then you should go into ihram at home. And if you go into ihram at home, then obviously it's about getting into this state of purity whilst you are at home. It is then sunnah to wear new garments, okay? Remember, for the chap, it is an izar, which is the lower garment. And then there is the rida, which is the upper garment. So I explained last week how to tie the izar, fairly straightforward. Well, can be challenging for some, is if you sort of stretch your legs out beyond your shoulders width, and then you take the cloth, open the cloth out behind you fully, and then bring one hand across. And obviously that would mean that the cloth is now enveloping you, and give the corner of the cloth to the right hand. So in your right hand now, you're holding both pieces of the both ends of the cloth, one where the cloth is behind you and one where the cloth is in front of you. You then pinch the bit which is at your hip or waist, and then start making pleats, and then you can start wrapping it up to hold that. For a woman, obviously, she is in her standard day-to-day clothing. A man obviously can't wear stitched clothing. We mentioned that last week, if you remember. White is obviously preferable, and people tend to use white anyway, and that it is new. So one should try to get new material for performing Umrah or Hajj. Now, when it comes to applying itr, then the position with according to Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah is that it is permissible to apply itr, even if the smell of the itr can be smelt after this person has gone into ihram. As for others, both within the Hanafi school and also those who are of the other schools, they do not agree with the fact that the smell of the itr should continue after you've gone into ihram. So possibly it's better maybe to avoid it, because that smell on the ihram is only going to stay for several hours, and then eventually it's going to disappear anyway. So that's probably the better approach to take. Having said that, if somebody wants to adopt Abu Hanifa and Imam Abu Yusuf's opinion, then absolutely they can do so. It's no issue there. So now, obviously, a person has cut his nails, removed any unwanted hair, clipped back his mustache, whatever is now performed ghusl, and now he's put on his new garments, and so physically he is now ready to go into ihram physically. We also know, obviously, that when you're in ihram, you can't clip your nails, you can't clip your nails, you can't clip I've got messages coming in, you can't clip your nails, you can't cut your hair when you're in the state of ihram. Hence the reason why one should do that before they go into the state of ihram, so at least they're free from any unwanted hair, nails, whatever. Then obviously one is going to pray 2 rakat. So this is 2 rakats, and obviously the man will cover his head because he's not made the niyyah of ihram. Remember that the ihram is not the two garments. Ihram is being in a particular state. I gave an example last week about going into salah. Just because you are in wudu and your aura is covered and you're facing qibla and you're stood on a musalla and everything that, and it's time for asr, doesn't mean you are in asr salah time. You would have to make niyyah in order to be in asr. Okay. Similarly, just because you've got two pieces of cloth on and your feet are uncovered, you are in a state of purity, does not mean that you are now in ihram. It means the conditions of ihram are there. For you to go into ihram, a niyyah is required. Like, for instance, if you don't eat all day, but you did not make niyyah for fasting, then that fast is not valid. So similarly, so even though physically we may look like we are in a particular situation, we are not in that situation until we've made a niyyah, because an act of worship is only valid when a niyyah is made. So we need to understand that. So similarly in ihram, you're now physically ready, okay, but you are not in ihram yet, okay. Ihram would be when you make a niyyah. So now you would pray 2 rakats, and obviously for the chap, he'll cover his hair, he'll have a hat on his head, and he'll pray his 2 rakats. Once the 2 rakats are done, then he will make the niyyah. Okay, and the niyyah can be, this is the Arabic version, is Allahumma inni uridu al-hajj fayassirhu li wa taqabbalhu minni. Now, oh Allah, I am intending to perform Hajj, so make it easy for me and accept it from me. Now, if a person, so this is if a person is going to do ifrad. When a person is going to perform ifrad, then they're going to perform Hajj and solely Hajj. If on the other hand, a person is performing tamattu, then they're going to perform umrah first. So for them, it would be Allahumma inni uridu al-umrata fayassirha li wa taqabbalha minni. Oh Allah, I'm intending to perform umrah, so make it easy for me and accept it from me. Some, on the other hand, will be performing both umrah and hajj in one ihram. For them, they would make niyyah, Allahumma inni uridu al-hajj wal-umrata fayassirhuma li wa taqabbalhuma minni. Oh Allah, I intend to make umrah and hajj, so accept them both from me, and so make both of them easy for me and accept them both for me. So a niyyah is when a person goes into. Now, some people might say, well, I don't know the Arabic. What if I don't memorize the Arabic? What if I don't know the Arabic? What do I do? Then it's simple. You make the niyyah in the language that you are comfortable with. So if that's English, make the niyyah in English. If it's whatever language that you speak that you're comfortable with, then make it. And all you're saying is, oh Allah, I intend to perform umrah and hajj. So make them easy, or make it easy for me and accept it from me. That's all you're saying. Okay, so one is you're supplicating to Allah, and this is the niyyah. And obviously, in that time, in your heart, this dua that you make, you are making a niyyah to do so. You will then say after the niyyah, the talbiyah. And so the talbiyah is something that you will need to memorize. And the talbiyah is labbaik Allahumma labbaik, labbaik la sharika lak labbaik, innal hamda wa ni'mata lak wal mulk la sharika lak. Okay, so labbaik Allahumma labbaik, labbaik la sharika lak labbaik. إن الحمد والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك لك والنعمة لك والحمد لا شريك لك. So what does it mean? Allahumma, oh Allah, labbaik. Labbaik is normally when you say that I'm here, I'm present. So in this way, it could mean I'm at your service. Labbaik la sharika lak. I'm not going to translate every single time that a repetitive word comes. La sharika lak, there is no partner, or there is none associated with you, there's none equal to you. Labbaik, innal hamda wa ni'mata lak wal mulk. Then indeed all the praise and the ni'mah. The ni'mah is the blessings belong to you, and the praise according to some, and the dominion according to others. La sharika lak, and there is no partner equal to you. So that's the talbiyah. And this talbiyah should be said as regular as possible. So whilst you are in the state of ihram, as regular as possible, the talbiyah should be done. Okay. So once the person has made the talbiyah, he's made the supplication that, oh Allah, accept this Hajj from me, oh Allah, accept this Umrah from me, oh Allah, accept this Hajj and Umrah from me, and they've made the talbiyah, then they've made the niyyah that, yani, we are now in the state of ihram, and this person, as of now or prior to that, should remove the hat from his head, should remove anything now which would make his ihram problematic. The sister, obviously, if she's wearing a face veil in which the veil is touching her face, then she'll have to wear something which pushes the veil away from her face. So before the niyyah is made, you do not do something or be in a state of something which would nullify that ihram. So once the 2 rakats is done, after the 2 rakats, you've made the supplication. After the supplication, you get yourself in the state of physical ihram. Once you put yourself in the state of physical ihram, then you make the niyyah. Now that you've made the niyyah, you are now in ihram, like you are now in salah. Okay, so all the things, so once you've made the niyyah and you make takbira tahrima, then you are in salah. So all the things which are forbidden for you to do in salah, you can no longer do. Similarly, all the things which are forbidden for you in ihram, you can no longer do. Okay. So once you've done that, what are the things, like I said, there's certain things which are forbidden. What are the things which are forbidden for this person? Okay, so the things which are forbidden for this person now is to be involved in anything of an obscene nature. Okay, so anything of an obscene nature, even if, say, it is discussing intercourse or something like that. Okay, and yet he's just having this conversation with his wife. So anything which is of a matter which is not something that a person would speak of, that would be considered as inappropriate, that would be considered as something not really sound in this highly spiritual state, then they should avoid all those kind of conversations, okay, or any extra kind of conversation of that nature. Obviously, the person should refrain from sinning. The last thing a person would want to do, being in this heightened spiritual state, is to commit sins. So anything which is sinful, so obviously this requires some education beforehand, because we all know what obscene conversations are. You know, everybody knows what an obscene conversation is, but very few of us, unfortunately, know what sins are. So sometimes we think backbiting is not really a sin. Sometimes we think, you know, saying an odd lie here and there is not a sin. Sometimes we think using foul language is not a sin. So we, unfortunately, because we've become so accustomed to certain type of language and certain type of behavior, we commit sins. So, for example, vaping, smoking, all these things which would be considered as sinful would be things that the person has to now avoid. Okay, he has to now avoid. He has to be in this heightened spiritual state. Otherwise, you are making your ihram problematic. Furthermore, when it comes to the sins of the mouth, avoid quarreling, avoid arguing, avoid anything which obviously is going to cause your ihram to be problematic. Furthermore, when it comes to killing anything, whether it be even animals that are hunted. Now, obviously, when you go to the haram, you ain't going to hunt any animals. There's no animals to hunt. The only things you'll be hunting is all these al-bakes and Pizza Hut and KFC and all the rest of it that people are rushing around trying to find and eat. So that's the only bit of hunting that's going to go on. But joking aside, you would have to avoid anything that is going to bring the killing or death onto something else or onto something. So there's not even, pointing or, anything. There are certain creatures, obviously certain insects and certain creatures which obviously are a cause of damage to a person's health or potentially can bring about that person's death. Then we are permitted to protect ourselves. But it's better to get yourself out of that situation and allow that creature to just disappear than to try to engage with that creature. With most creatures, they do tend to go away. They'll only attack unless they're obviously frightened and they don't have an alternative but to attack. Unless obviously they're in your sleeping bag or something, then that's a different thing. But generally speaking, creatures will tend to go away from you. And there's hardly any scorpions or snakes or tarantulas or anything of that nature now, because it's so there's so many, it's populated so much, the area of Haram, that there's hardly any creatures of that nature around that area now. They've all moved on to quieter places, so there's less chance of coming across creatures like that. But there is some permissibility in there. As I mentioned when I was discussing about preparation for ihram, one can't cut their nails, one can't cut their hair. So no clipping at all, no cutting at all. That has to be avoided at all costs. This would violate one's ihram. All these actions would violate one's ihram. Now, we talked about violations, we talked about transgressions right at the outset. I think on day one, there are some violations and transgressions which require sadaqah. There's some violations and transgressions which require dam meaning the slaughtering of an animal, and then there's grades of the slaughtering of the animal. And there's some violations and transgressions which unfortunately bring that person's Hajj to a standstill, brings it to a stop, meaning that Hajj is no longer valid. You would still have to go through the actions of that Hajj, but the actual Hajj is not valid, and a person is required to go again next year. So one has to be acquainted of what they can and can't do in the state of ihram. As they say, if in doubt, leave it out. That's the best solution to think about. Think about only the absolute necessities is what you can do, which is eating, sleeping, and answering the call of nature. So as long as you think, right, I'm sticking to that, anything beyond that, if you're in doubt, ask. Obviously, you need to make wudu. Obviously, you need to make ghusl at certain times. So these things are also permissible. But do we start, scratching the beard or doing khilal of the beard to such an extent where we know we're going to catch some hairs and pull some hairs out? Do we do something like that? Do we bite nails? Anything like that? So now we're coming into an area of where we have to avoid. So again, remember the motto: if in doubt, leave it out. Don't risk your ihram. And if you're going to do something or you've accidentally done something, then seek clarity from the ulama that I have done this particular act. What happens? Is my ihram still valid? There's only, like we mentioned, there's only two things which would invalidate a person's Hajj. And I've already mentioned that in episode 1, I believe, if not in episode 2. So I allow you to go back and watch them. There's no point me repeating it here. And then there's a number of acts which obviously are of a wajib level, which can make a person's Hajj seriously problematic. And they would be required to conduct a dam, which can be quite expensive. I don't know what the price is nowadays, which I wouldn't be surprised if it's around £200 for an animal, for them, and it can potentially be a camel if it's a very serious offense, and that's significantly more. So it's better. It's already an expensive exercise, as we know. I think people are talking about £10,000, £12,000 to go for Hajj. I guess if you've got Pakistani nationality, it works out a little bit cheaper, but even then it's quite expensive. So what you don't want to do is pay out all that money, not be fully educated, and then make errors. Okay, so one cannot, in the state of ihram, cut their nails or hair. One cannot apply perfume onto their body. So that would also mean using perfumed stuff, like perfumed soap, like perfumed body lotion, like perfumed shampoo, like perfumed wipes, anything like that. So don't get anything which is perfume. Remember, this is not just restricted to applying ithr. It's restricted to adding anything of a pleasant smell. You are, in fact, because you are in a state of ihram, supposed to smell a bit off. That's the purpose. You are supposed to look a bit rough. You're supposed to look a bit, your hair is supposed to be a little bit everywhere, not oiled, not well combed. That is the actual purpose. You're trying to present yourself to Allah as a beggar, as somebody who is pleading to Allah. And real beggars back in the day would obviously smell. Their clothes would be, when you're wearing white clothes, they pick up dirt quite quickly. So there'd be clothes and you will sweat there. There's no doubt about that. You're not taking regular showers, so you'll smell of sweat. There'll be grime on you. There'll be dust upon you. So when you turn to Allah and ask for His forgiveness, then there is a good hope of forgiveness. But on top of that, also, there is good expectation that your Hajj will be accepted. So that is the purpose behind that. For chaps, obviously, they cannot wear anything. Remember, wear any clothing that is stitched. So keep that in mind. Wear any clothing that is stitched. Sometimes people think this applies to anything that is stitched. It does not apply to anything that is stitched. So if you've got a watch on your wrist and it's a leather strap with stitching in it, then it's not clothing. If you're wearing a money bag over your shoulder, or across your chest or across your waist, and it has got stitching in it, it is not clothing. The key thing to bear in mind is the stitching and the clothing. Okay, they're the conditions, not just stitched item. That's, it's got to be stitched clothing item. Okay, and that would be anything to a shirt, underpants, trousers, shoes, anything that is stitched. So that has to be avoided. Remember, this specifically is applying to chaps. When it comes to women, they will wear their normal clothes. There is an exception made for women when they go into the state of ihram because of the aura of a woman. Because of the aura of a woman, there is an exception made. Because the male aura is only limited between the navel and the knee, and because he's wearing a izar, and that's generally what people used to wear normally anyway, and that's the standard kind of dress code, then there's no harm in that for a man to wear that. But for a woman, she will retain and wear the same type of clothing that she wore normally. The difference only for her is if she wears gloves normally, she can no longer wear gloves. And if she wears a face veil, then she needs to make sure that the face veil she wears is distance from her face, that it does not touch her face as it comes down. I just saw that. Let me just check this before I move on. So we just got a question that's come in that's due to ihram. So assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. I have a question regarding the Hajj and when women are in ihram. Do we need to wash the clothes we change into with unscented washing powder beforehand if our clothes become dirty? For example, if my clothes that I change into have been washed with scented washing up liquid, will that cause me to have to pay a penalty? As I said, according to Imam Abu Hanifa and Imam Abu Yusuf, before a person goes into ihram, this is before they've gone into ihram, if their clothes have had scent applied to them, or they've been washed using scented soap powder or washing, not washing up liquid, whatever they call it, the like the Lenors and the others, and conditioner, that's the word, I knew I'd get it eventually. If that's been used on the clothes, and the person wears these clothes, but they're not in ihram yet, and then they make the niyyah for ihram, then that's okay, because they've not worn scented clothes after they went in the state of ihram. They wore the clothes whilst they were outside of ihram, and it's obviously permissible for them to do that. Then when they went into ihram, those clothes were already there. According to Imam Muhammad, and according to the other Aimma, Imam Shafi, Imam Malik, Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, they say that one cannot have the remnants of perfume when they go into ihram. So they were against that. So from a Hanafi perspective, it's absolutely fine that if they are scented, you wear them whilst you are not in ihram. Then you make niyyah to go into ihram, and the scent is only from clothes before you went into ihram. If, on the other hand, you are now in ihram, and 2 days pass, 3 days pass, and you think, you know what, I need a fresh pair of clothes on, I'm going to put some fresh clothes on, and those clothes have been washed in scented, now that's a problem, because now you're wearing them, okay, whilst you are in the state of ihram. So that's an issue now. Whereas beforehand, it wasn't an issue. Hope that makes sense. Is anybody else having problems putting questions up on the YouTube? Or is it maybe just one or two situations? But let's carry on anyway. I'm assuming everybody else is okay. Right. So that is the ihram. So next is, okay, that if a person needs to perform ghusl, now generally speaking, the person should avoid bathing. Okay, the person should avoid it. Why? Because it's a big risk. Naturally hair falls out. As much as you don't want to rub yourself, you may accidentally rub yourself. Similarly, dead skin sometimes falls off. So you want to avoid bathing, showering. You want to avoid that. Hardly anybody bathes now. You want to avoid showering. Some people think, oh, it gets too warm, I smell of sweat. Fine, deal with it. Let it be warm. Smell of sweat. That's the whole maqsad behind it. That's the whole purpose of ihram. But if it's in a state, so the only thing is making wudu. And obviously when you make wudu, you're just using water. So the only thing is that if a person is in the state of janaba, yani, that they have a wet dream or something, and they wake up and now they're in the need of ghusl, because obviously they're going to pray salah, and it's impermissible to stay in a state of ghusl for long periods of time. So therefore, this person has to now perform ghusl, have a shower. So they will perform that. That is obviously permissible to do so, but it has to be with water only. Okay, it has to be with water only. It is not permissible to get your fancy, shampoo out, get your fancy body lotion out, and all these, and they all have scents in them. They all have perfumes in them. Apart from a few specific ones, and now you're applying all of this. You will be violating your ihram. You have to stay in that state. You have to stay in this non-smelling state, or smelling as natural as possible, if you know what I mean, throughout your ihram. But obviously, you have to perform ghusl. We also know that you can take shade under a canopy, or under nowadays people have sun, what do you call them? Sun umbrellas. I don't know the difference between a sun umbrella and a rain umbrella, apart from the color. One is white, one is black. But you can use a sun umbrella as well if the shade is too warm. There's no issues with that. But obviously what you don't want to do is have those kind of umbrellas which you can wear as a hat, that you put them on your head, and you want to avoid that, because that is now acting as something which is like a hat. But anything above it is absolutely fine. Okay. Imam Malik, on the other hand, has quite a strong position that it should be disliked to take shade. Especially under things in which the item of shade is quite close to the head, because he feels it resembles the covering of the head. So that brings us now, so we've now performed ihram. We're not performing ihram, we are now in the state of ihram. Okay, so we've now cleansed ourselves physically. We've removed any nails, unwanted hair. We've performed ghusl. We've applied perfume. We've put on, for the man, 2 clean, new, white pieces of cloth. We've tied the izar. We've tied the rida. We've kept the hat on our head. We've prayed 2 rakats. After the 2 rakats, we have so after the 2 rakats, rather, I keep getting messages, sorry. After the 2 rakats, we've made the supplication, the dua, that oh Allah, make the ritual pilgrimage easy for us and accept it from us. We've done the talbiyah, and with the talbiyah, we've made the niyyah, and we are now in the state of ihram. Obviously, prior to the talbiyah, we've removed the hat if we were wearing a hat. The sister has placed the niqab away from her face. If the chap was wearing shoes, he's taken his shoes off. Basically, he's made sure that there's nothing violating his ihram now. She's making sure nothing is violating ihram. Made the niyyah, done the talbiyah. They are now in the state of ihram. Then we have made it quite clear that there's numerous things that they can't do: obscenities, foul language, sins, aggression, killing, anything. Even if it's an animal that you're going to need to eat, nothing. You are at peace with yourself. You are at peace. You are so much at peace at yourself that you're not even going to remove a nail from yourself. You're not even going to remove a hair from yourself. That's how much at peace you are with yourself. You are at peace with the people around you. You are at peace with the animals around you. You are at peace with the plants around you. Okay, because in the haram you can't remove any plants either from the earth. So you are in complete peace with everything that's around you. And you cannot apply perfume, you cannot cut your nails, you cannot apply perfumed items, whatever there might be, shampoos, what do you call them, moisturizers, wipes, okay, anything which is perfumed, avoid. And but you can take shade, and obviously if you need to perform ghusl due to janaba, you can perform ghusl due to janaba. And but again, you would avoid anything, any perfumes, whatever, because this would violate your ihram. Okay, so now we're good to go. Now, most likely, as I say, I encourage people to go into ihram whilst they are at home. And then you're going to travel. Obviously, as you travel, you are a musafir, and you will be a musafir until you get to the haram. And if you're going to stay in the haram for less than 15 days, then you will continue to be a musafir. But most likely when you reach the haram, you're going to pray every salah in the masjid. So it becomes slightly irrelevant anyway. Even in Mina, it's most likely that you're going to pray behind somebody who's a muqim. And so therefore you got your salahs covered in that regard. Okay, but whilst you're traveling, obviously you are a musafir. So you need to keep that in mind. Avoid the hats, avoid everything else. Once that is done, you now arrive at your hotel. If you've arrived at your hotel, do take things easy. It's natural to rush to go see the Kaaba, go see the masjid, and all the rest of it. But what you need to do is bear in mind you've done 24 hours of traveling. You are tired. You are dehydrated. You may have, elderly people with you. You may have young children with you. You may have mothers who are newly mothers, just given birth, or still providing milk to young children, or even carrying child. So, be sensible. Take all these things into precaution. I think that's a good place to stop, because I know we're not fully into it. It's just that we're now getting into the acts that one would perform. Unless we can sneak these in. Yeah, we can sneak this in. Let's sneak this in, okay? Because I think we can sneak this in before the days of Hajj come. So there is one arrive in Mecca, which is called Tawaful Qudum, okay? Tawaful Qudum. And this is the Tawaf of arrival, okay? This is the Tawaf of arrival. So when one goes to Mecca, they can go to the Masjid al-Haram, and they make Tawaf around the Kaaba 7 times, starting from the black stone, okay? So when you do that, you go face the black stone, you greet it, okay, with the istilam, as we refer to it, and you pronounce the takbir and the tahleel whilst the hands are raised. If you can, you would try to touch the black stone. That's not going to happen. Okay, that's not going to happen. So most likely you're not going to do that, and you will start, but otherwise you do istilam and kiss the hands, and now you start to circumambulate the house. As you circumambulate the house, then you keep your left shoulder towards the Kaaba. One shouldn't look at the Kaaba. You'll see a black line on the ground. It's fairly easy to work out which corner is the black stone. And there's a silver casing. You can see a mile off. But this is about the height of a man's sort of chest head height. It's in the corner, silver casing, and you'll see it because everybody will start to slow down as they start getting closer to that, with the black line on the ground. And with the black line, you do your istilam. Once you've done your istilam, you can now carry on going. This is called Tawaf Qudum, and it is sunnah. It is not a requirement. Remember, some people do it, some people don't do it, because some people go to perform umrah, they don't do it, meaning they go into do umrah straight away. It's not a requirement, okay? And then one can pray 2 rakats behind the maqam of Ibrahim. And that's a person, it is done. There is a possibility that if a person wants to perform sa'i between Safa and Marwa after Tawaf Qudum, then they have to do ramal. So remember this keynote, that if ever you're going to do sa'i after your tawaf, then you have to do ramal. That's for a man anyway. You have to do ramal, and you have to do ittiba. Okay. So what is ramal? Ramal is in the first 3 circuits, you will be quite assertive in the way you place your feet on the ground, in the way you may stick your chest out, and the way you move, as though you're moving with purpose, as though you're moving with some kind of vigor. Okay. Again, the space will make it practically impossible for you to do it properly, but you'll do it to the best of your ability. Ittiba, like I told you, is when you take the top sheet under the right armpit and you throw it over your left shoulder so that your right shoulder is unclear. And that's again in the first three. Okay, this is observed in the tawaf. So wherever there is no ramal, then there is no ittiba. Remember that. Okay. Then obviously if a person is doing sa'i, they will go out to Safa and Marwa and they will do the circuits across there. Okay, but I think that's very rare that people do tawaf al-qudum. Most people will go with the niyyah of umrah because they're going to do tamattu, so they will do umrah, and then after the umrah they will do hajj. Okay, so they will do, this is what most people will do. You need to decide that yourself. Consult the ulama that you're traveling with. So as I said, most people will go make the niyyah for umrah. They will arrive and they will most likely go to do umrah straight away, or the your group leader may say to you that, okay, let's rest in the hotel, and once we've rested in the hotel, then we can come back and after a few hours, and we'll do it. So they will do the umrah first, and once they do the umrah, they will come out of ihram, and then when the 8th of Dhul Hijjah arrives, then they will perform the rites of hajj. Okay, so don't worry about that too much for now. We will explain that in more detail as time goes on. For now, if you're going to perform tawaf al-qudum, you've done tawaf al-qudum. That's as far as we're going to go. We're going to say that this person is not going to do tamattu. This person is going to do ifrad or something of that nature. So he's going to do hajj. So, therefore he's going to now wait for the days of hajj. But we will come back to this and reflect over those three types of hajj: ifrad, qiran, tamattu. But for next session, what we're going to do is when the 8th of Dhul Hijjah arrives. Okay, so when the 8th of Dhul Hijjah arrive, the days of hajj start. Okay, the days of hajj start. Now, what does this person do on the 8th of Dhul Hijjah, the 9th of Dhul Hijjah, the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, the 11th and the 12th of Dhul Hijjah? What acts? Because remember, in episode 1, we said that hajj is something where you do specific acts in specific places at specific times. It is essential that when a person performs hajj successfully, that they do that. So please do recap over the 3 sessions that we've had so far, last Monday, last Thursday, and today, so that when we, inshallah, on Thursday, when we return for episode 4, we now start going through the days of hajj, but you have got quite clear on how to get here, inshallah. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.